During World War II, America's might kicked into high gear. As men fought overseas, millions of women joined the workforce to work in the wartime factories. Their contribution in the war effort was during a year until victory was won. However, a select few of the women contributed to a relatively unknown work, code breaking. They were cryptologists. Their job was to decipher encrypted codes from the Axis powers and report to the High Command. They were known as the Code Girls. Prior to and following the Pearl Harbor attack, military intelligence was actively recruiting women from across the country to participate in the code breaking. Both Army and Navy code breakers were mostly men, and as they were being reassigned to active duty, women were being recruited to take their place. Many were teachers or students who excelled in math, science, and languages. They were intelligent and imaginative. They were asked two simple questions. Do you like crossword puzzles? And were you planning on getting married? If yes to one and no to the second, they were considered for the position of codebreaker. Over 10,000 women from all over the country descended upon Washington, D.C. As they began their training, their instructors said to them, "Ladies, your country needs you." The women were trained in cryptonology to read and decipher the coded messages. This was tedious work, but extremely important to the war effort. Soon, the Code Girls were able to read thousands of messages about military movement and diplomacy among the Axis powers. The Code Girls became so efficient, they were able to read information regarding Japanese shipping so that most supply ships never reached their destination to bring food, ammo, and other supplies to needed troops. They were also able to read the exact itinerary of Japanese Admiral Yamamoto's schedule for his troop inspection. This allowed the United States Army Air Force to shoot his plane down, which turned into a major Allied victory, for he was the one who planned Pearl Harbor. The Code Girls shortened the war, leading to saving thousands of Allied lives in the process. Quiet woman whose intense work turned out to be a major Allied accomplishment. In 1940, the American code breakers were hard at work trying to break two Japanese code machines. One was called Red, the other Purple. It was decided that Red would be the one to concentrate on because Purple was far more complicated. However, not all were up to giving up on Purple. Among them was Genevieve, an astute mathematician with a gift of patience and amazing concentration. This paid off, for on the September 20th, 1940, she approached her bosses, who were having a discussion until she had their attention, and said, "Excuse me, I have something to show you." As she began to point out her discovery, her bosses exclaimed, "That's it!" Genevieve had broken Purple, the Japanese diplomatic code machine. And from that moment forward, Purple became known as magic. In June of 1942, 1 month after the Battle of the Coral Sea, Japan was sending a large fleet, including 6 aircraft carriers, toward the Pacific. Japan wanted to call out the American Navy to battle and eliminate the remaining carriers. The naval codebreakers were working feverishly to crack the Japanese code. To find out where the Japanese Navy would strike, 2 U.S. naval officers, Joe Rockford and Edward Layton, who was the Admiral Nimitz's chief naval intelligence officer, had been trained by veteran cryptologist Agnes Driscoll. They decided to see if Midway Island was the enemy's destination. So they had Midway send an uncoded message saying they were short on fresh water. Japan's coded to their highest command, AF needs fresh water. The U.S. Navy now prepared for the epic Battle of Midway that changed the course of the Pacific War.
The Code Girls continued their work after Midway. In fact, as they were working in Arlington Hall, rumors of a surrender message being sent out were running wild. The U.S. had dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so it appeared the end was in sight. Nobody wanted to be left out if and when the message came through. They intercepted a message from Switzerland on behalf of the Japanese. In it was the terms requested. They in fact knew all about the surrender before the president and the high command. Things changed for the Code Girls upon the end of the war. Most of them were out of a job. With troops returning home, they were mostly relegated to becoming wives and homemakers. Many became depressed. They faced a nightmare finding housing. Everyone was looking for a place to live. Since the country had been focusing on supplying the war, there were few appliances to be found. The country moved ahead and saw an enormous boom in housing. Some of them did become depressed in not being able to find work. After Liza Monday's book, the Code Girls were finally recognized for their efforts. The oath that they had taken regarding security stayed with them for their whole lives. They were told that they would be shot if they revealed any secrets. Their service was finally recognized on March 20th, 2019 by the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. Pictured here, Dorothy Dot Braden Bruce had hoped to live to be 101. She died 2 weeks after her 99th birthday. The program NBC's Sunday Closer broadcast a story on the recognition on March 25th, 2019. All these years later, one of the Code Girls, Catherine Fleming, said she never told her family. When asked why, she said, "Loose lips sink ships."